there. I can't wait to get into this one. I want to know, just off the top, what are some examples of some awkward
Well, for some people, any conversation about money is awkward. They're like, is that the doorbell? I think I have an almond stuck in my throat. Anything to get out of the conversation, right? Some of the most common ones, splitting the check, splitting the bill, a request for loaning money, estate planning, wills, and anything in the process of developing a relationship. So at what point in dating do you bring up the fact that you have $13,000 in credit card debt? Like those kinds of things. So there are a lot of awkward conversations, and depending on our temperament, it can be very, very difficult to manage them.
So splitting the bill, as in you have the friend that's like, well, I did not drink today, so if you could just minus 10 cents off
for the record,
my
I was
bill.
that person.
Were you?
I was that person.
Okay.
I was that
we
person.
Had a
I
word,
am reformed.
you and I.
Well, I'll use that as an example of someone who handled an awkward conversation very, very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about that. What do we do to handle it? Like, what do you do when things just get awkward?
First, you need to think about the person across from you at the table. What is their emotional state? What is their financial state? What is your relationship state? So for some people, you think about people in your life, you could say anything to them and it would just be fine. For some people, you know you need to tiptoe around a little bit. So know who you're talking to, because what you say will differ based on the person who is sitting across the table from you.
Okay, you got to know your audience. That's the first and most important thing. Then you know your audience, you figure out what that is. Where do you start?
Oh yeah, so before there's talking, there's thinking. There's a lot of thinking. And I don't mean you need to spend days with your therapist on this, but think about a couple things. First, how important is this issue for you? So for some people, this is, it's just not that big a deal. I'm not going to have the awkward conversation. So think about the importance and think about the intensity of the emotion associated with it. Is this like a little mosquito bite, or is this flesh-eating disease that is eating you alive? Because it's important to know that in advance before you head into that conversation. The most important prep you want to do is think about what your intention is. So let's talk about the splitting the bill thing. Is my intention, I want the friend to pay half the bill, or is my intention, I just don't want to feel used anymore? I'm feeling a little used, I don't want to feel used. It's a very different intention, and it affects the approach. So the example that I had, this is a long time ago, but a friend of mine, as I'm adding up the fact that he had a beer and he had dessert, and I had none of those things, and ordered the cheapest entree on the menu, he said, listen, we're splitting the bill 50-50. And the reason is, you come to my house and you have beer, and over the course of time, it all just works out. And it was like a lightning bolt for me, because I realized that I was using math that was inappropriate in this friendship. And he handled that awkward conversation so beautifully for me.
Okay, so is it that it was easy to handle because it was you? Because I imagine you're easy to talk to about this stuff.
I'm pretty easy to talk to. I'm pretty easy to talk to.
People can broach that topic with you, and it's like, I've had friends that are cheap, and I'm thinking, I don't know how to tell them that this is unacceptable.
So a couple of tips that we want to go to all awkward conversations is, depending on who we're talking to, we might want to give a little bit of a warning. So if people know either by email or maybe at the beginning of the conversation, Liz, I've got a little thing that we need to talk about. You can even do a little dance like this. This is a patented dance, like a little, so that they're not blindsided by it. And sometimes you do that by email. They may cancel the lunch if you do it by email. I don't think I need to talk. Yeah, exactly. The second thing is you want to provide some context. So I think for conversations that we have with people who are very important to us, it's a worthwhile reminder to say, you are my best friend. I love you more than wine. I really do. And there's an awkward thing I need to talk to you about. So a little bit of context, or if the intensity is high and your intention is really like to have a transformation in your relationship, you may say, listen, something tough I have to talk to you about. We have talked about this many times before, and I am now at the end of my rope. So having that context will really inform how the conversation goes. Now, if we think about what your intention is on this splitting the bill thing, how you approach it can be very different. It could be just a little thing. It's just a little thing. I notice when we go for lunch together, you itemize the bill, and I'd really rather just split it evenly. It could be as light and simple and playful as that, or it could be one of those ones that you want to hear like the preview music for a movie trailer where it's like dun 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 dun, and you want that because you're having a conversation and you need to draw a line in the sand that, listen, this is something that's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's so important, though, to come back to your intention. Because sometimes if we don't identify what our intention is, we end up vilifying the person across the street. We end up being defensive about things when really our eye is about, maybe our eye should be on, I want to have a great friendship with this person. Right. And it's going to be a little messy and tough to get there, but I want it to be a great friendship. And in my world, all great friendships are grounded in total communication. So I've got a pretty long track record in having awkward conversations with people, because that's how I roll. I don't like to leave things, and other people are happy to leave things they don't mind.
Right, so you will mention it. Do you use a lot of I language when you're having that conversation, like, I feel like this and I feel like this, rather than you are X, Y, Z?
I is important, so that is certainly important. The other thing that's so important is active listening, which I will say, my mom's going, hi Mom. In the 1970s, my mom made me fight with my sisters by active listening them. It was the most annoying thing in the world. Do you remember what this was? Or maybe you didn't do it in your family. So you had to recreate exactly what they said. So my sister would say, you're the meanest brother in the whole world, and I would have to say, you're saying that I am the worst brother in the whole entire world because so you create what they said, and that the effect of that is that people feel heard. And that's so important, because you can eliminate so much of the tension just by having someone feel heard. Like, you get what I'm talking about. So that recreation is so important. The other things to remember is that in awkward conversations, you want to look for a solution. So maybe you, at the end of this splitting the bill thing, you have a request, you have a suggestion, you have a, maybe, you know, it's not easy for us to go for lunch. Let's go for walks. Let's go to see a movie. Let's do something else.
Switch it so we're not in the situation on that anymore. Think before you do the talking. That is the biggest thing I took away from that. And thank you so much, Bruce, for the advice.